Okay, so I'm going to get a little bit lawyerly on you today. Now, I know, why would I do that? Well, there's a very important reason, which hopefully will become clear in this video. But first, an update with Tommy Robinson is that there is no update. They're going to let him know tomorrow, apparently, which, with the time difference, we'll find out what happens. And now there's a very important reason that I invited Tommy onto the channel to discuss his issues, and a very important reason why I invite the discussion, and I invite it openly. Now, I do that, I hope, in the most unbiased way possible. Now, I had a lot of strange comments. There was a lot of comments in the comment section, over 3,000 comments in that video, which I'll link below if no one has any idea. Which I'll link below if someone has no idea what I'm talking about. I had a good chat with Tommy Robinson to clear up the guesses, the misconceptions, the assumptions that have been made about what happened, about his arrest, and so on. But speaking more specifically about why I invited him on and why we chatted about it, and the role of a lawyer. Now, picking up one of the comments that I read yesterday. Now, thank you all, by the way, for commenting. Whether you were thanking me for doing the video or whether you were outright insulting me with some of the comments that I've read. I have a thick skin and I don't really care about the insults. I will take them on the chin or on the head, as the case might be. People very often call me bold when they don't like what I say. So I did a whole video talking about that over on Black Belt Secrets, my sister channel, where I do give you some of my opinions. I'll link that below if you want to go and watch that as well, because I am fairly full, frank and open and honest on that channel about what I think about certain things. But on this channel here, I like to keep it as neutral and unbiased as possible so that I can present both sides of an argument, much like a news company is supposed to do. But many people have commented that news companies don't always seem to put both sides across and that they seem to be somewhat biased. Now, I'm not going to name any particular newspaper in doing so, but I've seen certain headlines that certainly make it look like they are leaning one way or another, which they're not really supposed to do. You see, for those that I wouldn't expect you to know, but for those that don't know, if a company or a broadcasting company wants to call themselves a news company, then they have to comply with certain guidelines and editorial codes and so on. And the way that they present the news, in quotes, to you is unbiased and impartial. So they have to present both sides of an argument to an extent that it reflects the likely audience views. Now, if the audience or the intended audience is leaning one particular way, then that obviously influences how much they have to comply with this, but they should be presenting the opposing argument to whatever the argument is that they are presenting. But that's not necessarily true for my channel. I can pretty much, if I wanted to take my opinions and run with them, I can do that. But as a lawyer on this channel, I like to remain unbiased so far as I can. I will hint at my views now and again, and I'll justify them if I have a certain view on a certain thing. If I think someone's done something wrong, I will say that I think that was wrong, and regardless of what side of that fence they fall on. And where I agree with what somebody has said, I will tell you that I agree with what they said. Just as an aside, because I think you'll find this really interesting, I want to show you a video that demonstrates just how easy it is for someone to access your account and change your details without your permission. Listen to this.
Call your cell phone provider and see if I can get them to give me your email address.
So she's going to call his phone company provider and get them to give her his email address.
I bet they're good. I bet they have my back. But yeah, go for it.
I'm going to spoof from your number. So it's going to...
Spoof a number just means it makes it look like it's coming from the real number when it's not. So it will look like it's this person calling the phone provider. Just like when people impersonate banks and they call you, they pretend to be the bank. It looks like the bank's number to you, but it's not really the bank.
Look like it's calling from you.
Okay.
Hi, I'm so sorry. Can you hear me okay? My baby, I'm sorry. My husband's like, we're about to apply for a loan and we just had a baby and he's like, get this done by today. So I'm so sorry. I can't call you back.
Just pausing there. This is a diversion technique. Lots of noise, lots of frustration, lots of panic, urgency, all of the little things that people use to trick you, only she's doing it with the phone provider.
I'm trying to log into our account for uses information and I can't remember what email address we used to log the account. The baby's crying and can you help me? Awesome.
In just 30 seconds,
gmail.com.
Jessica gets my personal email address.
Now, if I needed to add our older daughter on our account so she could call in and make changes, how would I need to go about doing that? You would have to send me a secure PIN through a text message? Yeah. Well, the thing is, I don't think I'll be able to receive a text message if I'm on the phone. Shh. Oh, I'm not on there either? So I thought when we got married, he added me to the account. Okay, my
Jessica
name is
uses my girlfriend's name and a fake social security number
5127.
to set up her own personal access to my account.
Wait, I'm sorry. So there's no password on my account right now? Can I set that up?
She even gets the support person to change my password.
Thank you so much for your help today.
So not only has she got the email address that's linked to the account by spoofing a phone number and calling the phone provider, but she also got them to set up another access to the account with a password. So now she's got full authorized access to the account. So why am I telling you all this? Well, it's because lots of companies have all sorts of bits of information about you. They store them on their database, they sell them to brokers who sell it on to other marketing companies, and ultimately they might end up on the dark web and scooped up by a bad actor who then pretends to be you. And the way that you can avoid that is by signing up with a company that I partner with called Incogni, who contact hundreds of these data brokers and use data protection legislation to require that they remove your data from their servers. I have an exclusive link with a 60% discount off an annual plan at my link in the description below, which is incogni.com/BlackBeltBarrister. And once you create an account, Incogni will contact all of these data brokers and insist that they remove your data from their servers. That reduces the risk of it ending up on the dark web somewhere and people using your information just like they did in this video, only with many more bits of information about you to impersonate you, then to take out loans, contracts, buy things, and all sorts of other stuff. So again, the link to that discount is in the description. It's incogni.com/BlackBeltBarrister for a 60% discount off an annual plan. And it comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee if you change your mind or you're just not happy with the service. But if it worried you as to how easily they set up an additional user on that account, imagine what they could do with a full list of your details. Check it out, and now let's get back to the video. But here's the very important message for this video, and it's why I brought this out. I don't often bring this out, probably 2 or 3 times out of a couple of thousand videos I've ever brought this on camera to show you. But there's a very important reason. This originally reflected anonymity. So the barrister stands up in court, and the judge sits down to conduct the case. Now, in the lower courts, the magistrates or district judges are there as the finder of fact. In the Crown Court, the Crown Court judge is the adjudicator, if you like, for the law, the procedures, and controlling the evidence, controlling the trial. We call that case management, legal decisions, and control of the evidence, where the jury is the finder of fact. The jury decides what did or did not happen. But the barrister's job is entirely unique. In fact, it's probably just as unique as it gets. I think it's as unique as being a brain surgeon, because the role of a barrister is to present the case. Now, sometimes I teach at the law school, new barristers, trainee barristers, and I know my learned friend Alan Robertshaw on Art of Law, that rhymes. I'll link him in the description below. He teaches advocacy classes as well and runs advocacy sessions as I do. We do that because we enjoy doing it. It keeps us sharp in new ways of doing things and practice doing things. And so when I'm teaching there, I tell new trainee barristers that your job as a barrister is not to believe one side or another. It is to present one side or another. And so whilst I'm not restricted to do that on this channel, as I say, if I wanted to give you my views, I can. And sometimes I do, not very often, but sometimes I do. But our job as a barrister is to present both sides, whether we agree with that or not. Now, I've fought many cases in court that I absolutely fundamentally disagreed with my client on certain points. But no one would know, not even the client would know, because it's not my job to believe or disbelieve the client that I'm representing. My job as a barrister is to present their case without misleading the court. But my duty to not mislead the court does not override my duty of confidentiality to a client. So many people will say, well, if you know they are guilty, you should tell the court. In fact, many trainee barristers believe this is exactly what you should do. They believe that if the client's told you they are guilty, some people say you have to tell the court. But that's not true, because it's confidential. If they've told you in confidence, look, I am guilty here, what's the chances of actually defending this case, or what is the prosecution chances of getting home on this case, as in convicting me on this charge, then our job is to advise, regardless of whether they're guilty or not, regardless of whether they've told us they're guilty or not. It does affect how we can present the case, because we can't call them to, deny the charge when we know they did it, because that would be misleading the court, which we're not allowed to do, and things like that. So if they do admit guilt to the barrister, then it severely curtails what we can do in court to represent them. So more often than not, believe it or not, they don't tell us whether they're guilty or not. They flat out deny it. And not that I practice criminal law. I don't anymore. I've done criminal cases in the past, but I don't anymore. But as a general principle, regardless of whether it's criminal or civil, if it is a civil case and the client has said, well, actually, yeah, I did send that email, or I did forge that document, or whatever it is, insert something wrong, did do that thing, then we are not allowed to mislead the court. But we can still present the case to the best standard possible within the rules, so not misleading the court. So when I invited Tommy on here, it was because there's lots of speculation and assumptions and just vague information going around online, most of which is unsubstantiated guesswork. And the best way to clear a lot of that up was just to invite him on and talk about it. But sure enough, within the first 10 or 15 minutes of that video, the unsub squad arrived, shouting and declaring that they are unsubscribing from the channel. Now, I find that a little bit odd, because as I said, my role here is to present to you one argument or another, one side or another. And even if I presented my view to you, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to agree with it. In fact, whenever I give you my opinion on something, at least I endeavor to always say, you don't have to agree with me. You are entitled to your view, and I will respect your view. And more than that, I will fight for your right to hold and express your view within the law. Now, obviously, the freedom of expression, Article 10 under ECHR, for now at least, provides the freedom of speech, the freedom of expression, which is very well guarded in the United Kingdom. We are free to express ourselves in any way, although it is not an absolute right. It can be curtailed in accordance with other laws. For example, the right to the freedom of expression does not permit you to go and make death threats. That obviously amounts to a separate offence, several offences, depending on how you've expressed that. If it's through electronic communications, it would be malicious communications, and otherwise it is just a flat-out threat to life, which is a separate offence entirely. But if you are just commenting on things, giving your views on things, if you are saying you don't like certain things and you don't like certain people, then that's your view. You're allowed to say that within reason, depending on how you've expressed it and whether or not it passes any thresholds to make it grossly offensive. And that has to be grossly offensive before that comes an offence, because within the right to the freedom of expression, you have the right to offend. Effectively, if someone else is offended by what you've said, tough, in a word, up until a point it becomes grossly offensive. And so I encourage different views in the comment section. I invite them, in fact. But the funniest thing I saw yesterday was a comment left against me, which by the time I read it was left some 17 minutes beforehand, telling me that they unsubscribed over 3 hours ago. And yet they were still here. So I do find it a little bit odd when people try to weaponize the unsubscribe button, like it's some kind of power or leverage over me. Make no mistake, it isn't. Because overall, if I produce content that the majority of people like, the net result is going to be positive. And so, as I say, within the first 10 or 15 minutes, it was net minus about 25 subscribers. But even if the video as a whole was net minus, I still think it's worth doing, because I think it's only right to present arguments even when people don't like them. It is a little bit like someone accused of a really serious and horrible crime. They still have the right to full, fair and proper representation. Because if they are not having their case fought properly, and let's say it was just a behind closed doors, under the table, dark, dodgy, dirty deal with the prosecution, I will just say this and you can get home on the prosecution, slam dunk, easy peasy, that's corrupt. And that is not a fair system. It is only a fair system when both sides are fought equally, fairly, and you hear both sides of the argument. But within that, incorporates hearing arguments and views and information that you might not like, you might not agree with, and those that shut all of those out will simply exist in their own echo chamber, hearing only their own views or the views of those that agree with them. And so I don't delete comments. A lot of people say, oh, you deleted my comment. Well, no, I didn't. YouTube has fairly strong filters, which does filter these things out, because YouTube as a platform is responsible for the comments left to a certain extent. But predominantly, the people that leave those comments are the ones responsible. So overall, if you're looking at any particular kind of argument, and especially with the election not too far away, with a lot of, let's face it, a lot of mudslinging in all directions, do take a listen to the opposing views. If you are entrenched in one particular way of thinking, do have a listen to what the other side's got to say. It may reaffirm what you already thought, but it may be that you hear something that has logic and sense that you really didn't think would be the case. So I hope you find that an interesting insight, because when we present a case, it doesn't mean we agree with it. And so, as I say, I've dealt with cases where I fundamentally disagree with the underlying principle of what's being argued, but I still fought the case nonetheless. As many barristers will attest to, I've very often been praised by judicial praise for valiantly and fearlessly presenting a case that ultimately was lost, because the underlying merits just weren't there. Now, sometimes we get a case which is completely without merit or completely unarguable, and there are separate rules for those, and the court's got power to strike those out. And so very often those will get struck out. But if you're the kind of person that couldn't represent a case that you don't fundamentally believe in, then you'd have a difficult job being a barrister, because you don't get to choose the cases, at least unless you're taking direct access instructions, which is where the client comes to you without a solicitor. In those situations, you're not bound by what we call the cab rank rule. Literally like a taxi cab, it's the next cab along picks up the next passenger. The next lawyer along picks up the next client. We don't choose, we don't discriminate. The only deciding factors are we competent to do the work? Is the fee a proper fee? Are we available? And let's get on and do it. And obviously you have to be of the appropriate seniority. I've had prospective clients come to me, mainly through my channel now. I've had prospective clients come to me, one of whom wanted to instruct me privately to represent them on a murder charge. Now, I can't do that. One, because I don't really practice crime anymore, but also because I haven't practiced crime long enough to be senior enough to do a murder trial, prosecute or defend. And so that wouldn't be for me. So I would have to turn that down, even if that came from a solicitor. But certainly if it came privately and it was best suited by a solicitor and barrister arrangement. And also there's legal aid implications as well. But I thought you'd find this a bit of an interesting insight video to the way that I think when I present these videos to you and other people and their views to you. I am presenting both sides of an argument, both sides of a case, in an unbiased way, which I hope most people see and most people appreciate. If you do like and appreciate that, I would really appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button. Between 1 and 2 unique million viewers of you watch every single month, but that's not reflected in the subscription count. I know the videos probably still pop up in your feed, but it does really help the channel grow and spread to a wider audience when you hit that subscribe button and the like button and you comment and you share, which also makes it a bit ironic when people have told me that they've unsubscribed and yet they're still there 3 hours later commenting all night long. That really does all contribute to the algorithm, and I really appreciate it. So thank you for watching, thank you for liking, subscribing, commenting, sharing, and I'll see you next time.